I'd like to welcome on stage Jihad Bou Nasr, who's the Regional Managing Director for Kitopi, which, if you haven't been reading the headlines, is the latest company in the UAE to become a unicorn, a business that's valued at over $1 billion. And he's going to be teaching you guys the secrets of success, or let's hope so. Jihad, please, let's give him a round of applause and welcome onto stage. Thank you. How are you? Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. So in our first two panels, they were talking about Dubai and the UAE becoming a land of unicorns. So you are one at the moment. There will be many that will hopefully follow in your footsteps. For anyone that doesn't know Kitopi's story, just give us a little bit of a background as to, a helicopter view of your journey. And you've only been going in, what, 3 years? That's correct. So you've gone from zero to $1 billion valuation in 3 years. There's got to be something we can learn from that.
That's great. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. So Kitopi's story started, just a bit over 3 years ago. And what we are is we are a managed cloud kitchen platform, which means we operate kitchens both in Dubai and across the Gulf, and we partner with restaurants to cook their food and deliver to their customers. So we're a partner essentially to restaurants.
Okay.
And the way it works and what differentiates us from other cloud kitchen players, you must have heard that term a lot recently, is we do the end-to-end operations. Okay. That means not just cooking, but cooking, supply chain, delivery, distribution, customer service. And it has allowed us to work with globally recognized brands like Papa John's, Nathan's Famous, and a lot of local heroes like Right Bite and Under 500 who work exclusively through us. So if you've ever ordered from one of these restaurants, that means you've probably already interacted with Kitopi without knowing that you interacted with Kitopi. And that's our whole business model. We're a B2B service player, servicing customers by partnering with our restaurants.
Again, a reminder, if you would like to actually add a question, the WhatsApp number. That's for questions, not for orders for food. Lunch does follow this panel. So you're a cloud kitchen, which would mean that technology is in your very DNA. When you started your journey, you knew you were going to be a tech player. How did you approach that challenge of becoming a technology company? How did you find your CTO, your Chief Technology Officer? And what's that journey been like? I mean, how different did your MVP product look to the product the public see today?
Yes, so that's absolutely correct. Technology is in our DNA, and our Chief Technology Officer is our co-founder, so one of the people who established the company. And what we've done that we think kind of separates us from the rest and allowed us to reach the evaluation you just mentioned is by having technology the core focus of the company. So we've invested a lot, not just in being a kitchen operator or restaurant operator, because if you are just that, then we're just tackling the inefficiencies that exist in the current industry. But rather, technology is the core of what we do. And the way we do it is we've built our own operating system, what we call the Smart Kitchen Operating System, or SCOS for short, which takes care of the end-to-end technology required in the kitchen, from receiving the order from the customer to sending it to the right station in the kitchen so that food is prepared quickly, conveniently, and assembled eventually and sent to the customer in a quick and efficient manner.
You've literally just answered a question that came in from the audience, and again, thank you so much. How does Kitopi cook for different brands? If you've got, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, how many brands are you actually working with now?
So today we have around 200 brands.
200 brands.
Across the Gulf. We operate around 65 plus kitchens, and we have around 2,500 employees, Kitopians, and we're only growing.
So how do you, so you got 200 then. How do you get all that different journey? So an order comes in and eventually someone's cooking that right brand rather than the next brand or the brand after. How does technology help you do that?
So this is exactly where technology comes into play. So if you can imagine a large kitchen that has, in each kitchen we have probably around 40 to 50 brands, not more than that. And we have anywhere from 50 to 100 people working across different stations. So the way we first do it from an operation point of view is brands are assigned to different stations. So if you are a kitchen cook, then you're probably working on 1 or 2 or 3 brands, not more. That simplifies the training process, and cooks can cook more than or learn more than 2 or 3 brands.
Okay.
But from a technology point of view, and where we've invested a lot of time, is when the order comes into the kitchen. If you imagine a massive kitchen with 50 people running around, we prioritize the order that is coming from the first customer. So if you got 5 customers that just ordered, and there's one that's probably the furthest away, that's the one you want to prioritize, location-wise. And the way we avoid, let's say, kind of your question, cooking for all these brands plans without complicating things, is by assigning the right item to the right station to the right commis. So through our technology, we can break down these 5 orders that came at once into different recipes or different items and send the corresponding item to the corresponding station where we have the person, the cook, specialized in that type of food. So you can imagine a burger station that cooks 2 or 3 types of burgers.
Yeah.
But if you order burger and fries, the fries would go to the fries station and that kitchen cook can prepare the fries in parallel as we prepare the burger on another station. And all gets assembled through QR codes that are tracked in the assembly area to make sure that the right items then go together in the same bag and are shipped outside the kitchen with the delivery driver.
So you're a physical company in terms that you deliver a physical product, but without that technology, your business doesn't work, does it? Or it's not the $1 billion. The technology behind it is your secret sauce.
100%. If it wasn't for the technology, we wouldn't have seen the interest from investors who are willing to kind of grow with us and support us. If it wasn't for technology, we're just one massive kitchen who's not efficient.
Yeah.
But we start from what the customer wants. And the reason we built the technology is not because we want to be a tech company. It's because that's what's enabling us to disrupt this industry and get close towards what the customer wants. If you order food online, you're focusing on what do you want? You want quality, you want speed, and you want accuracy, right? So if you order from any of your favorite restaurants, an order might come late, it might be cold, it might not be what you exactly ordered. And through our technology, we're able to ensure, I'll take the example of quality. If you have 10 orders in the kitchen at once, which order should you work on first? Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a trick question. Should you work on the order that came the first, or should you work on the order where the customer is the furthest? Or should you work on the order that the delivery driver is closest? Because what you don't want to do is prepare an order in 5-10 minutes, but the driver is still 20 minutes away. That will make the food become cold. So through our technology, by integrating with our aggregators, Deliveroo, Talabat, Zomato, we know how far the driver is, we know how far the customer is. And we know exactly how long it takes to cook that burger. So we can sequence all of these together and make sure that the food is coming out fresh and hot to address the quality aspect. In terms of speed, same thing. Since we can divide an order into 3-4 sections of the kitchen, because we have a managed cloud kitchen, that way we can cook the fries and the burger and the salad together, in parallel, so that they all come out fresh. If you order from a typical restaurant, they'll probably cook them in series, which means your first item now is cold. And so that's how our technology enables us to satisfy what the customer wants, which is quality, speed, and accuracy. And that's the reason why we've built a tech-enabled kitchen company.
Okay. I'm just going to respond to one of the audience members. No, order your own Shake Shack. If you could go back to the day you started your business, what would you tell yourself? What did you get right? What did you get wrong? Which, hopefully then the audience can learn from that. What was the funniest moment, or what was the biggest teaching moment on that journey? What are those lessons you've learned in the 3 years that you've been on this journey?
Yeah. So it's a pretty big question. Let me try to unpack it in series. And apologies if I forget one of the sub questions. Yeah. But if you look at our learnings and failures or mistakes we've made, to start with, we are a company that supports making mistakes. We encourage our employees to make as many mistakes as quickly as possible. We think the biggest evil in a tech or in a startup company is not making bad decisions. The biggest evil is being indecisive, is waiting for the best answer in which another company probably beat you to it or you lost the opportunity. Right. And so we encourage making mistakes, learning from these mistakes, because only by learning from these mistakes, then we are 100% solid on what is the right course. And we can act fast. And I would admit I am one of the biggest, let's say, suspects of making decisions slow. I come from a corporate environment. I used to work in management consulting.
Okay.
And in management consulting, the biggest question or the biggest to-do you had to do is come up with the most accurate answer in as much time as you want. In the startup industry, it's the opposite. It's coming up with the quickest answer, even if it's wrong. So we have made a lot of mistakes. We have failed a lot. We have a famous slide in Kitopi that shows all the business ideas that launched and which are still live today. And there's around 20 of these ideas, and there's only 2 that are still with us today. But we are proud because if we didn't do these 18 mistakes, we would have never been courageous enough to take the 2 that are still with us today. So yes, mistakes is encouraged. And what we're most proud of is honestly the team that we've built. It's a mix of crazy individuals, dreamers, visionaries that can go on any tangent and get the best opportunity out there with a lot of structured, thoughtful, financial due diligence people. And it's that mix of team that allows us to have a lot of heated debates sometimes, but get us on the right track.
That's really promising, because my wife will tell you I make lots of mistakes. So there's hope for me. How have you built that into the culture of the company, though? Because that's got to come from the top down, though. Otherwise, people are afraid to make mistakes. And there's a lot of legacy companies out there where that kind of reporting structure and that ability and that freedom to mess up doesn't exist. How did you, as leaders, walk into that and go, we're going to do this different?
Yeah, so it starts definitely with the leadership admitting that we've made our own mistakes, right? From our CEO to myself to our CTO, we are always open about the investments that went wrong. And we encourage others to do that. Like I said, indecisiveness is our worst enemy. It's not making mistakes. So it's about being very open, transparent with your company. And we are, as a company, have started our journey by being very transparent with our employees on the direction we're at, which means they've seen the direction shift every now and then, and they've seen the bad bets that we've made. So it's really about transparency, about admitting your own mistakes. Like my biggest mistake was more on the management style. It's about not delegating enough. It's about thinking I can do everything myself.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever we'd launch a project, I would be the person fully in charge of that project, trying to drive it through. But what I realized is that there's no way your team will respect you and take over that project after you're gone. So it might be successful for the 2-3 months you work on it, and then it'll drop. So that was my personal biggest learning, and I shared it with the rest of the company. Telling them, going forward, I commit to delegating more, to empowering others more. And
once again, we kind of end up back in this space as well, where the technology isn't only the answer, or isn't solely the answer. There needs to be a cultural shift to enable your team to use that technology effectively.
100%. And that's why you asked me what is the biggest thing we're proud of. It's really the team that we've amassed over the last few years who is able to interact very openly and honestly with each other, admit to making mistakes, but still be ambitious enough to go after projects, even if there's a chance of them failing.
So if you could go back to being, startup Jihad mode, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell the startups in the room? What was the three key things you should have done? And if you could go back and change those mistakes, would you? Because that would have removed the learning from those mistakes. This
is a tricky question. Exactly. Would I even change those mistakes? Yeah. From a opportunity point of view, the 20 opportunities I mentioned, I don't think we would have changed them. I mean, you do reflect back and think, okay, maybe I would have done this a bit differently. Maybe I would have taken my time. But it's really a difficult question, because if you were more cautious back then, would we be where we are today?
Yeah.
And the answer is probably not. So I definitely encourage at least startups in the room to encourage others to make mistakes. Of course, you still need a very solid vision.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that has enabled us to be successful. We always had a very, very clear, solid vision. And our vision is to satisfy the world's appetite. And we do that by providing exceptional food on customers' terms, quality, accuracy, and speed. So we've always had that very crisp vision. But how we got there has always, of course, changed.
And do you value those mistakes then? From all of those mistakes, there have been little things that you've gone, yeah, that didn't work, but that was a good process that we learnt on that, or that was a good piece of technology we developed, which we can again pivot. You've been on a 3-year journey. You've started from a company from zero to $1 billion. How have you built that pivot process? That review, look what worked. No, see that you've at some point have made the decision that 18 of your projects weren't working. I mean, that's got to be a difficult thing to do. How did you go through that process to actually get to the point of admitting failure?
Yes. So luckily enough, a lot of these projects were driven by myself or the leadership team, where we were okay with admitting that enough is enough. We tried them and we're encouraging everybody with us to do so. But I think the biggest learning along this journey of having made these mistakes is over time we get better at knowing what works and doesn't, and we get better at developing a crisp process and playbook to check those projects before we greenlight them. So now going forward, we imagine we're not going to make 2 right bets out of 20. We imagine we'll make 5 out of 20 or 10 out of 20. But the reason we can admit we can do that is based on our learnings across the journey and the mistakes that we've made and the projects that have failed. Allowed us to develop this playbook or this checklist of criteria to greenlight projects going forward. So, I mean, maybe my answer and my advice to everybody is, you have to start by working fast, especially in an environment that's being disrupted, that is emerging. So you have to worry less about doing things right rather than doing a lot of things to figure out what's right. And over time, you shift from doing a lot of things to developing the playbook, the structure, the learnings, and then at some point you reach a stage where you will be less likely to make the same mistake you do before because you've learned how it works. And there's nothing we can teach to others because it's very business specific, company specific, team specific, industry specific. But you have to take that journey yourselves.
I had a question come in from the audience, and I love this question, which is from Juan Carlos Fayad. Thank you for your question. Basically, he said, when did you know that it was time to take the leap of faith and start up? And I guess in your question, I mean, you pivoted from a career in management consulting. I have met very few poorly paid management consultants. So what inspired you to leave the profession you knew to leap into what was the startup at the beginning of the journey?
Yeah, and I can answer very quickly. It's the vision, it's the team.
Yeah.
From the moment I met the team, I knew the founders 2.5 years ago. I knew that they clearly had something they very strongly believed in, and we're going to pour a lot of hard work into it. And that gives you kind of the energy, the motivation to know that you're jumping ship to another ship that's being built. It's not built yet, but you trust the process, you trust the team. So it's really the team and the vision.
So then none of your management consultant friends going, what are you doing? Are you mad?
Back then, yes.
Yeah.
Back then, Kitopi was not as known as it is today. We didn't have kind of the valuation we have today. And of course, we're proud of where we are today. But yes, of course, it wasn't an easy decision at all.
So what were the metrics that you ticked off in your head when you made that decision? Because there are the startups out there. And what would you say to startups in the room? I mean, what would you say to Juan? How did you know it was the right time to take that leap?
I mean, personally, everybody has their personal considerations,
Yeah.
but it's really about what you're getting into. And Kitopi is very much a mission-driven company. Like,
Yeah.
we really believe in what we're doing. And like I said, a lot of people in this room might be customers, but they don't know their customers, and that's not our goal. Our goal is to really provide food, quality, consistency, speed, and accuracy. And as long as you're following something that you know you'll be happy talking about, to your wife, to your kids,
Yeah.
to your family, then you're doing something that's right for yourself.
How much is purpose important then? Because, I mean, it's easy as well to, sometimes you look at it a bit, possibly trite and go, yes, we've got a vision, we've got a purpose. But how important is it to actually live that? Because you can look at something and go, yeah, I can make money in that space. Mm-hmm. But is that enough to go, yeah, I can make money in that space? Does it have to be something more driving it?
It might be enough for you, but if it's not purpose-driven, then it's not enough to attract talent.
Right.
Right. And for us, this is one of the most proud things we have is we've built a team that's come from all over the world to work with us. So all of our management teams are people who left, jobs like myself and joined the team because of that purpose-driven culture. How do we drive that? By reminding people every single day why we're waking up in the morning, why we're coming to the office. It's because we're trying to serve customers in a way that they've never been served before. So I think that has attracted a lot of talent into Kitopi.
And two questions come in, and one of those speaks to what you just said. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I totally agree with that, thank you. What kind of vision does Kitopi have for Kitopians, its employees?
So I don't know who said that, but I would have disagreed with you 2.5 years ago when I was in a strategy consultant position. And I'm 50-50 on it now because you need a lot of strategy still, right?
Yeah.
Culture, yes, drives people to wake up in the morning and come and give their best, but you also need to mirror it with some sort of direction, some sort of guidance of where...
Well, you've moved a long way then from being a management consultant. I mean, 50% of the way, give it another 3 years and $2 billion and maybe you'll be all the way there.
Probably. But yes, we have a lot of culture-driven programs which we're encouraging our employees to also adapt and be culture ambassadors. It's very difficult to drive culture from the top to the bottom. You're basically kind of just saying speeches and you're telling people to do things versus encouraging them to do so. So it's very much bottom up. So there's a lot of culture programs where we encourage the most junior people, even in our kitchens. I'm not just talking about the office, to come up with recommendations of how they would like their work to be. We've had simple suggestions such as we want music in our kitchens every Thursday, or we want to have lunches together or play sports together on Saturday. So a kitchen is very much like a team environment. There's no way you can succeed as a head chef or as a kitchen cook if you don't believe everybody around you is supporting you. So culture is very much something that we encourage people from the lower levels of the staff to develop ideas so that we can all adopt as an organization.
Is that another one of the lessons learned? Again, every time we talk about technology this morning, we stray into another area, whether it be climate change, whether it be sustainability, whether it be processes, whether it be strategy, whether it be culture. A lot of people look at technology and go, technology is the answer. Ah, yes, we have that shiny new technology, and we'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. But is it far more important to actually put in place everything that enables the use of that technology? Otherwise, that technology is ultimately useless to you.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And if I talk a bit about our technology, I mean, who are the users of our technology? The users of our technology are not customers, right? Because customers go to websites or apps of brands to order food. The users of our technology are the people in the kitchen, right? Are the cooks, are the general manager. And so if that technology is not accessible and compliant to what they would like to see, then it's impossible to be used. So if you enter any of our kitchens, you'll see every single station has a touch screen that is operated by the commis that gives him or her an indication of what to prepare, how to prepare it. We have LMS, what you call learning management softwares. That's also iPads in our kitchens, that if they feel that they're not very proficient with the recipe, they can flip to it. So, I mean, technology has to serve your end user. And for us, the end user of our technology is the kitchen staff.
Right.
And yes,
so they're your first customer.
100%. And this is where we've really shifted in how our kitchens used to look like from the past to today. We still have the same equipment. We still have the same layout. What has changed is these tiny devices, what they say, what they tell the cook to do, what order to prepare first, what orders to prepare in parallel, and how to prepare an order. So this is where we're investing almost all of our effort and time.
Thank you, Shohit Raina, for your question. And another follow-up question, is Kitopi exploring blockchain? Maybe you already are.
Blockchain is not on the horizon as we speak. We are exploring, we have implemented a lot of AI in our kitchens and robotics. These are kind of our two big bets for today. Robotics, yes.
Robot chefs?
Not all the way there, robo-assisted chefs, so robots that can assist chefs.
Right.
So if you think about, there's certain processes in the kitchen that can be automated easily, not to replace the chefs at all. You still need the final chef's touches, but to make his or her life easier. We've implemented AI and technology in detecting food before it leaves the kitchen. Is it the right dish? By taking a snapshot and comparing it to snapshots we've taken earlier.
Okay.
Do you have the right items in the bag? One of the biggest issues in the delivery industry is that inaccurate orders or missing items are 2% of orders. McDonald's had issued a report a few years ago. 2% of every single McDonald's order had a wrong or missing item. At Kitopi, we're proud to say it's 0.1%. And the reason we have that is because every single order before going out is scanned. I think you visited our kitchen.
I have. I was going to come on to that,
And every item is scanned before it goes out. So the manual errors are way less than a normal restaurant company. So these are the problems we're trying to solve in this industry. How can we, again, focusing on our customers, what do they want? Quality, speed, accuracy. And how can you use our technology in our kitchens to enable that? And this is going back to kind of the very clear vision. We've never strayed away from that vision. And that's what we think enables us to get to where we are and get investors to trust in what we're building.
This kind of touches upon almost like that lean startup book that talks about Toyota, where they have a process where if there's any one thing wrong, the process stops immediately and gets fixed immediately, which seems counterintuitive to many people. It's like, well, you stopped everything.
Yes.
Surely that's slow, but in fact what you're doing is catching the quality control early.
Correct. And not just that, I mean, quality control is the last step before an order goes out.
Yeah.
But there's so many tools and processes you can put in place to even avoid that being an error. At the station, making sure the commis is cooking the right ingredients, giving him or her the early detection of I'll give you another example. One of the other issues in the food delivery industry, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, is you might place an order, and then 20, 30 minutes you're waiting, a customer service agent calls you and says, sorry, this item is not available. We ran out. So by implementing our technology, our supply chain, our ERP, and our AI, we can detect early on if an item is going to run out and replenish it and make sure the kitchen cook on his station or her station doesn't have to worry about that anymore because the item is going to come to him or her even before the order comes.
Looking wider, you're a unicorn now. How much does it A, mean to be a unicorn, but B, what do you get the sense of the startup scene here in the UAE right now? Is it a really exciting time to be? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities that you see out there in the market right now for other businesses and startups?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll be remiss if I don't admit that we are an output of this ecosystem, the infrastructure, the VC ecosystem that the UAE has built.
Right.
So Kitopi only started 3 years ago and was able to achieve unicorn status, not just because of the vision we had, it's because of everything that enabled us to get to where we are. And so we are very proud to be part of this ecosystem, and we believe that's what kind of launched us to get investors from abroad, but also locally as well. So we're very hopeful that there's other startups who, with a very clear vision and a lot of hard work, can get to where we are. And we expect to see at least another 10 unicorns in the next year or two coming out of the UAE.
Yeah.
And many of them are our partners. So we did partner with a lot of small startups, tech startups in the delivery space, in the supply chain space, who are now growing with us as well. And we hope they become the next few unicorns.
You talk about those steps along the way. What were some of those support steps that you were able to access that helped you get from where you are now, from then to now, that other businesses go like and go, yeah, actually I can connect with the government on that, or I can connect with VCs there. Give us some practical information that the guys can actually write down and go, right, that's how I'm going to take on Katopi.
Yeah. So I think one practical information is connect with investors or potential investors early on. Like, it's impossible to assume that an investor is going to give you a big check of $100, $200 million from the first day they meet you, or the first year they know you, or the first 2 years they know you. So connect with your investors early on, build very trustable, solid relationships with them. We used to have workshops every few months. We used to invite our investors to come and give us feedback, to listen and to be part of the company, to be part of the story. Even potential investors, they used to come, and we'd give them full access. So definitely connect with your potential investors super early on. And we are very proud that SoftBank was the investor that led the fund.
Not small.
Not a small investor at all, and this was the first investment they have made in the UAE ever.
Okay.
And of course, there were a lot of investors from Abu Dhabi and from California, from the UK that believed in our vision. But so number one, connect with the investors early on. Number two, share as much as you can with them. Make sure there's a two-way kind of communication street with your investors. And three, try to depend on other startups or partner with other startups in the region, in the ecosystem that can help you get to where you need to.
So is it important to be part of a sort of a tech community then a startup community? Because I could see like a lot of companies thinking, oh, well, I can't talk to anybody else because I don't want to steal my business idea. But is that how you learn best practices? If and that's how you find out that's good technology, I can import that into my business to help me succeed. Yeah,
this is something that was a debate in the early days of Kitopi. How much should we share, even with our employees, with our investors, with our ecosystem?
Yeah.
And obviously, there's concerns sharing too much. Competitors can emerge and just take that and build it themselves. But we made a decision early on that we are going to be very transparent with everybody and bank on the idea that we're going to make a lot of decisions early on, fail, learn from them, and work faster than anybody else to get to where we need to. It's for sure very industry dependent and IP dependent. Our IP has always been in our technology.
Right.
So that is kind of very much protected. But in what we're building, what we're trying to achieve, we've always been very transparent and hence relied on others to come and support us in achieving where we need to.
How hot would you say the tech sector is right now in the UAE?
Yeah.
And what sectors, if you were starting from scratch, would you be going into food tech again, or are there other sectors in tech that you'd also go, that's good, even if you got your management consultant hat on?
I mean, it depends on your ambition. If you want to be a scalable company that kind of grows beyond UAE borders and then achieves presence and dominance in other countries, then you have to be a tech-enabled company for sure.
Right.
But more importantly, I mean, we started as a food business trying to disrupt the traditional food business and restaurant business by implementing tech. So it's almost impossible to disrupt an old industry if there's not a lot of tech involved.
Right.
So for sure, tech is definitely the way to go. There's tons of sectors that right now are shining, whether they're in the insurance space or the payment space or even the delivery space is seeing a tech revolution. So my money would be definitely on tech-enabled traditional businesses that have operated the same for the last 10, 20 years.
So, I mean, because it's a term that's been bandied around for a long time, disruption, and you just used it there again. Facebook was a disruptor. It's no longer a disruptor. It's the mainstay. Is that still a path to success? Have we not disrupted everything already? Or is that still no luck to disrupt as opposed to improve or change the way we do things?
Yeah, so it's a fair question. I think it all starts with what does the customer want. If the customer today is not satisfied, then you need to disrupt that sector. I'll give you a few examples. maybe some bad examples, some good examples. When Apple came up with their iPhone, that was clearly a disruption that customers wanted. They wanted to put in their pocket a phone, a music player, a GPS device. And that was something that clearly the need existed in the market. And so the disruption was a positive one. A negative disruption is something like Google Glass, where Google came up with, if you remember, the glasses with the camera, which nobody really wanted. So if they started from the customer, they would have realized there's no use case for it. But that was a disruption that failed. So if you look at the food and beverage industry, like if I ask you, Scott, how many times do you order food a week or a month?
That's a very personal question. Maybe a couple of times a week, let's say.
A couple of times. How much, and who orders food on delivery over here in this room? Like who's ordered once in the last month?
Show of hands.
Show of hands. Probably,
that's a lot of
a bit
you.
more than half. And if I can ask you again, Scott, how many times did you order food 3 years ago on delivery?
Probably twice a week, but anyway.
But
I imagine you must have seen a massive use case grow during coronavirus.
So 100%, even right before COVID started, there was a lot of people deciding to order food more frequently than they used to before. I never ordered food 5 years ago.
No.
Right? I always used to go out to restaurants or go to family dinners. But today, the customer journey is changing. The use cases are growing, and hence our disruption is a disruption that's driven by customers wanting to order more food. And you're right, COVID did help us. If you lived in the JBR area and your favorite restaurant was only in downtown, there's no way you could have went during COVID. So we enabled restaurants to open with us in JBR as well and deliver to you as a customer. So again, disruption has to be customer driven. If you're trying to disrupt an industry without a customer use case, like Google Glass, you will fail.
Another question from the audience. Does Kitopi have any competitors as we speak? And what could that mean for Kitopi if a strong competitor appears? How are you going to pivot to take that on?
Yeah. So the cloud kitchen industry, it's important to note, is a very wide industry. Like you can imagine, if you have a kitchen and you're renting space for another restaurant, you're a cloud kitchen. If you are let's say a restaurant and you're operating 2 brands in the back, you're a cloud kitchen, right? You're on delivery. So there's a very wide definition of cloud kitchens. Deliveroo has their own spaces that you can rent and cook in, and they're a cloud kitchen. The reason we don't talk so much about competition is we do the end-to-end, and we haven't seen anybody do the end-to-end. So from the supply chain to the food cooking, to the delivery, to the technology, to the ERP, that's something that we haven't really seen done. We've built our own proprietary software. Nobody else has done that.
Yeah.
Tackling food operations in the restaurant industry.
That answers a question from the audience as well, which is, who is your technology partner and provider? Is that you?
That is our CTO.
Right. Okay.
That's us. We've built our technology in-house, and this is what we prioritize from day one. And the way we've done it may be different than others as well, is we built our technology for our own use. You know, we could have easily built a technology, and that was one of our biggest strategic bets that we did not take, which is building a technology and licensing it to others.
Right.
And the reason we didn't go in that direction, and we thought was the right decision, is if you build a technology for others, then you're not learning as quick as you can to have to iterate and improve that technology. We built the technology day one for us, which means we were in the kitchen observing how the technology was used or misused or underused, which allows us to pivot much faster than anybody else to build the full suite of applications we have today to drive efficiency and operational excellence in our kitchens. And I mentioned a few around the screens and the ordering and the AI in the kitchens.
So you are in food tech. What is the future of food?
What is the future of food? So it goes back to the customers. What do the customers want? I mean, we do see food being much more accessible. If you take your favorite restaurant that might exist only in one location, you know, that's not enough for you as a customer. So the future of food is availability, it's convenience, it's being able to order or go and have a dining experience and the next day or the next week order from that same restaurant. So it's really accessibility. It's being omnipresent as a food brand, is being able to reach your customers anywhere and everywhere on their own terms. So customization is another thing we're looking at. Some restaurants don't allow for customization, but you as a customer might want to replace a few ingredients. It's speed, it's quality, it's everything we mentioned back then. And we think we are one of the biggest enablers, if not drivers, of getting customers what they want.
We've got, you may have a potential customer here. Would Kitopi consider selling its technology in the future? So white labeling out, which is what you just talked about that you didn't do.
Yes.
Is that something you would consider in the future?
I would not say not in the future or never. At the moment, and in the last 2-3 years, our focus was building the best technology. It wasn't about trying to make a profit off of it, so that eventually, yes, potentially we can sell it to others. It still is in a phase that we think we're still learning a lot in our kitchens, but I think that's a valid question and that's a valid business model to be after, yes.
Also, Nabila, one of our reporters at Raven Business, wrote a really great story that got a lot of buy-in, which was about digital businesses becoming physical businesses. You're sort of you're a bit of both of that already. But would you expand into the physical space? Could we see Kitopi branded restaurants springing up? Is there a physical future outside of cloud kitchens for Kitopi?
We're definitely exploring a lot of things. I think there's nothing that we've went ahead with so far. We're purely virtual. A lot of our brand partners have physical stores, and so potentially enabling them, supporting them in their own kitchens.
So using a kind of infrastructure.
Exactly. But yes, it's something that we're thinking about on the horizon.
When I was reading your story and you talked about the fundraising, when you became a unicorn company, you raised something in the terms of $400 million from your fundraisers?
Just north of that, yes.
I mean, that seems like an eye-watering sum of money. But is it the same pitch almost from day one as to then going back to that funding round? You know, who were your first partners? And now you're going back and you're asking somebody to give me $400 million to expand my business. What are the principles of fundraising that any of the startups out there should be? You know, how do you convince those investors, take a $400 million bet on me?
Yeah, it definitely was not easy. And I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier. And for me, this is kind of my biggest takeaway from joining Kitopi. And for any startup out there, you always have a very clear, consistent, solid vision. And that vision has never changed.
Right.
What changed from the rounds, the Series A, Series B, Series C, is the assets that we had built. And assets were presence, were technology, were number of brand partners, was ambition. You know, so our ambition, also increased over time. It's the number of bets that succeeded, which of course came on the back of bets that failed. So over time, showing your investors that you are growing and growing. And then number two is also, like I said earlier, being very close to your investors. So SoftBanks, we have been in discussion with for the last 2 years. They saw our story. Maybe we're not big enough for them. Maybe we hadn't exactly kind of satisfied what they were going after. But as they were involved in our growth story over time, they finally came in the Series C and were able to kind of deliver on that promise. So I think these are the main things. Of course, pitches become harder. Pitches take longer time. But we continue to focus on what we're doing best, which is technology in our kitchens, scaling, growing the number of brands, getting more trusted partners to join us, building our team as well. That was kind of also our pitch to SoftBank, that we have a team that has done F&B for years, has done technology for years, marrying the two together. Yes, and I think SoftBank were great enough partners to believe in our vision, believe in the story that we're building, and support us here and across the Gulf.
So what's exciting you then in the next sort of 12 to 24 months? And are you going to, what's the next mythical creature that you're going to be valued as? I don't know what's beyond the unicorn these days.
I haven't heard of another creature that beats the unicorn, but we're not so focused on the valuation at the moment, obviously. Okay. I mean, it is a very proud moment to reach where we are, but trust me, day one, the announcement, day two, we're all back in the office working hard, because we know, to get this far is a quarter of the journey. Really, there's way more that we need to do now, and there's much more, obviously, eyes on us. Kitopi a year ago was not that known in the public sphere. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. What we're going to focus on is definitely more expansion. So today we exist in 3 countries. We're opening Bahrain and Qatar in the next few months. Southeast Asia is also territory we're exploring right now. Number 2, working much more closely with our brand partners. So, in the past we've only been supporting, enabling them by, operating on their behalf.
Yeah.
But going forward, supporting their supply chain, reducing their cost, innovating with them on their menus, giving them more customer data. So enabling our biggest partners, which are brands. And 3, focusing more on our tech. As much as we've achieved so far in our tech, there's still a lot to
Full circle all the way back to tech.
100%. And you'll see a lot of robotics and AI. I don't know when your last visit to the kitchen was, but if you come back in a year, you'll see a completely different kitchen.
I love the fact that you've gone from 0 to $1 billion valuation in 3 years, and we're about a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
Great. Jihad, thank you so much. I found it fascinating. I hope you, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, have found that fascinating too. I couldn't think of a better note to end the AB Tech Forum than that story. Thank you so much for your attendance today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Quick shout out, remember, please subscribe to ravingbusiness.com if you have enjoyed this. And lunch is served, not via Katopi, but lunch is served. Please enjoy. A round of applause for all of our panelists today, please.
Thank you.